attitude.
We're not like everybody else. Nobody in the world can beat us, really.
Trash talk.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get.
Turnovers.
2 to the air. Ponder takes a snap. Looks left. Throw. Ball is intercepted. And there goes Sermon.
And big hits.
Second to knock. Stafford throwing middle. There's Johnson.
During the 2010s, there wasn't a more dominant or intimidating unit in football than the Seattle Seahawks defense, which was led mostly by their secondary, aka the Legion of Boom. And this wasn't the only thing that set Seattle apart. With an all-time outlier at the quarterback position and one of the most dominant running backs in the game, the Seahawks offense was more than capable to produce on a regular basis, and they often made the biggest of plays when it mattered most.
Did he wind up with a football?
However, a team that once had so much promise would face heartbreak,
Pass is intercepted at the goal line.
controversy,
He and the front office, they didn't value me like they used to.
and ultimately, nasty breakups that still aren't resolved.
You know, I've said enough criticism for him, but God dang it, run the dang ball.
Now, before we continue, this video is sponsored by SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. And even though football season is over, there are more than 70,000 events every single day available on SeatGeek, which includes concerts, other sports, festivals, and more. To pass the time to next football season, why not go out and do something fun? I plan on getting out and going to a few concerts throughout the summer. Plus, it's so easy using the SeatGeek app. They put all the tickets across the web in one place to make sure that you are getting a good deal. Every ticket is rated on a scale from 1 to 10, so look for the green dots. Green means good and red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And I got you guys. Use my code KTO for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code KTO. Make sure to click the link in the description to download the app.
You know, I've said enough criticism for him, but God dang it, run the dang ball.
How did things get to this point? Let's go back to the beginning. In the mid-1970s, Seattle was awarded an expansion NFL franchise, and they played their first season in 1976. Throughout the 20th century, the Seahawks were somewhat of a forgotten franchise. Never that great, as they didn't reach a single Super Bowl, but never that terrible, often finishing with a record hovering around 500. It wasn't until 1999 where the franchise began to turn a corner. With the hiring of Mike Holmgren, the Seahawks rose to prominence throughout the 2000s on the back of a solid offense led by Shaun Alexander and Matt Hasselbeck.
There's man rolling right to throw the pass. Touchdown Seahawks!
They reached the playoffs 6 of the first 9 seasons under Holmgren and even reached the Super Bowl in 2005, which they lost. But Holmgren opted to not sign another contract after 2008, leading to the hiring of the team's DB coach, Jim Mora, which went disastrously, and Mora was fired after one woeful season. The well of success that this franchise had experienced for a decade had dried up. Shaun Alexander was long gone. Franchise quarterback Matt Hasselbeck was on his last legs. And with the retirements of other franchise pieces on the horizon, the team as a whole was in desperate need of a rebuild. Which brings us to January 2010. Where the first brick of the Seahawks' future was placed.
I know that the vision for the program starts at the top. I know that Paul Allen wants to win, and he doesn't want to just win once in a while. He wants to win from now on. There's an extraordinarily high expectations, and I love living in that world.
We're looking to see who can win on the deep balls. This is a competition right here.
The public image of Pete Carroll had greatly changed. He had gone from journeyman coach who had been fired twice as an NFL head coach in the 90s to a college football legend in the span of a decade.
I come from a place where we had tremendous fortune, and the things that we accomplished has really given me an opportunity to grow as a coach that makes me a much different guy than I was a few years back.
USC football was one of the biggest shows in sports at the time. No one was better in college football during the 2000s, and Pete Carroll's happy-go-lucky attitude gave him the reputation as a player's coach. His role as a motivator and letting the players be themselves helped propel Carroll to where previously seemed unfathomable. But after his worst season as the team's head coach in 2009, Carroll decided to leave USC for another shot in the NFL. If this gig failed, Carroll certainly would never get another head coach opportunity in the pros. The only reason he got a third shot was he had become the best college coach in the country.
The one thing that Pete will have to do is he can't be the Pete Carroll acting like a 17-year-old kid around those guys as much as he did at USC.
A handful of players showed up for the press conference to hear what their new coach had to say, and all of the players I talked to said they liked what they heard.
A little birdie gave me a tip in the meeting that one of his players just said he was a joke. So when you get it from the locker room, it tends to go a long way with players like us.
Initially, there was a bit of optimism, considering the team possessed the number 6 and the number 14 picks in the upcoming 2010 draft. With premier left tackle Walter Jones' retirement on the horizon, the Seahawks used their first pick on Russell Okung, who was seen as an elite tackle prospect. With their next pick in the first round, the team drafted Texas safety Earl Thomas.
I think Earl Thomas is the most instinctive safety I've seen on tape in the last 10 years that I've been watching tape.
46 selections later, Seattle was up on the board once again, selecting Notre Dame star wide receiver Golden Tate. And much later, in the 5th round, with pick number 133, the Seahawks opted to take another defensive back, Virginia Tech's Cam Chancellor.
You got to account for that guy. He's a linebacker playing safety.
Chancellor was initially seen as a guy who could provide some depth at the strong safety position, as he was named 3rd stringer to begin the season. Entering 2010, the Seahawks were seen as a mediocre roster in a bad division, expected to finish somewhere in the ballpark of 7 wins. The Seahawks jumped out to a 2-2 start. Nothing crazy had happened yet in the season, but the team saw an opportunity on the trade market and took it.
Breaking news at ProFootballWeekly.com as the Buffalo Bills have traded former number 1 draft choice Marshawn Lynch to the Seattle Seahawks.
After the Bills drafted C.J. Spiller in 2010, it was only a matter of time before they dealt off Marshawn. Pete Carroll had seen Marshawn multiple times when he played back at Cal. Marshawn Lynch was cast by the media at the time as a turbulent player, from inconsistent play on the field to legal issues off the field. Although he did make mistakes with the law, the way the media turned on Lynch was eye-opening to him, and something he would not forget.
I'm listening, talking to these individual media guys or whatever. Oh yeah, you the greatest thing since sliced bread, blah, blah, blah. Then I got in some little trouble, had faced some adversity, and then it was like, oh, I knew he was a thug. I knew this nigga really shit. It was only a matter of time before. I'm like, damn.
Seattle was eager to get their new running back out on the field.
Marshawn Lynch gets his first touchdown as a member of the Seahawks. That's all Marshawn Lynch. Wow, what a run.
But like the team as a whole that season, there was nothing to write home about throughout the regular season. Marshawn put up an underwhelming 3.5 yards per carry, and the Seahawks finished the year with a mediocre 7-9 record. So that was it for the 2010 season. Well, not quite.
Seattle takes over on downs, and the Seahawks, having lost 7 of their last 10, having finished with a record of 7-9, but going to the playoffs, and the New Orleans Saints will begin here on Saturday.
For the first time in NFL history, minus the strike year, an NFL franchise made it to the playoffs with a losing record. Seattle had ranked out as one of the worst offenses and defenses in the league. And unsurprisingly, they ranked out as the worst playoff team of all time by Pro Football Outsiders. Despite a home playoff game, the traveling Saints were massive 10-point favorites.
The onus for me falls on Matt Hasselbeck. You need to play a clean game. 12 touchdown passes, 17 interceptions. Won't get it done.
But the Seahawks surprisingly came to play.
Hasselbeck bumps once and lays it up. And Julius Jones fumbles. It is Seattle's ball. That's for the second half for the Saints. Over the running game.
Jumping out to a 34-20 lead, the Saints shaved off the deficit to just 4 points, and with less than 4 minutes to go, this happened.
Crowd silent now.
Motion right to left. Turn and handle Lynch. Left side.
You don't hear nothing. All I heard was the ruffle of my shoulder pads.
Finds a little bit of a hole. Keep his legs moving.
And breathing.
He's across the 40. Midfield. 45. He's on the run, Lynch.
We almost was running at top speed.
40. Pushes the man. 35. Look at him go.
The next thing I know,
He's down to 20. 15.
dive into the end zone.
He could go. He is going to go.
Touchdown. And at the time, I'm just thinking like, what the hell just happened?
You can see it gets to its strongest here. That's about 20 seconds later. That's probably just about when he's doing his celebration in the end zone.
It was later determined that crowd activity and noise was so great during Lynch's game-clinching touchdown run that a nearby Pacific Northwest seismic network station registered a small tremor located at Quest Field. This run still stands as one of, if not the greatest single run of all time, and was later nicknamed Beastquake. It literally has its own Wikipedia page. The following week, the Seahawks would fall to the heavily favored Bears. But even with the loss, the end of this season gave Seattle fans something to rejoice over.
These guys hung extraordinarily well. That's who we've become. So hopefully the program will continue to grow in that direction. And as we go through our opportunities, we'll make this team stronger and better, and we'll be further ahead because of what we've gone through.
But despite the buzz created at the end of the 2010-2011 season, the team was still in the midst of a rebuild. In fact, they were extremely lucky to have been in the playoffs in the first place. There was still major question marks about the direction this franchise was headed, and one particular move in the 2011 offseason would send shockwaves throughout the team and fan base.
Carroll said the number one priority of this offseason is to re-sign quarterback Matt Hasselbeck.
Matt finished beautifully with us, so we're going to move forward, and we have to see what it all means, but we're on it.
After Pete Carroll had announced that re-signing veteran Matt Hasselbeck in free agency was the team's number one priority, the two sides failed to come to an agreement. Hasselbeck had gotten a call from Pete Carroll and GM John Schneider, where they let him know they were going to move on.
This was the spot that Matthew Hasselbeck wanted to go to. The Titans wanted him. He will serve as their starting quarterback and a mentor to Jake Locker until he's ready one day in the future to become the Titans starting quarterback.
After watching and knowing Matt for the last decade here in Seattle, lead this franchise to places it had never been before. It's going to be a very inexperienced quarterback leading your Seattle Seahawks in 2011.
Hasselbeck described the call as worse than a breakup with an old girlfriend. This was a tough era for Seattle sports fans. The Supersonics had been relocated just a few years prior. The Mariners had been one of the worst teams in the MLB for nearly a decade. The Seahawks were the lifeblood of this city, and Hasselbeck had been the face of it. Once rumors that the team was considering moving on from Hasselbeck, Seattle fans began a web and social media campaign at the end of the lockout in 2011 to, quote, bring back Matt, with a website. But it didn't happen. This moment was a defining one in the turn of this new era. The torch had officially been passed to the new regime. Their team needs entering the 2011 draft were pretty eye-opening just how far this team had left to go. They had major holes at nearly every position on the field. In the beginning of this rebuild, it was becoming clear that the direction Pete Carroll and John Schneider wanted to take this team was going to be primarily through the run game and the defense. The 2011 draft further alluded to this. The first 2 picks were used on offensive linemen. Then, 6 of their next 7 picks were used on the defensive side of the ball, including 4th-round linebacker KJ Wright, 5th-round DB Richard Sherman, 6th round DB Byron Maxwell, and 7th round linebacker Malcolm Smith. This was the reaction from the media.
Sherman, the former wide receiver turned corner, just an average 5th round pick. I think it was a draft that's not going to help this team stay where they are, which is the playoff variety.
Every single one of these picks, I do believe they could have gotten a better player at each one of those spots.
So the messaging here to fans was a tough one.
There's somebody that said previously that they better know something that we don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think they are supposed to know more than we know.
Apparently this draft wasn't good.
And there was still glaring holes that had to be addressed. Most importantly, who in the hell was going to play quarterback for this team?
This entire program has always been about competition. In this situation, I think to make it the most competitive for our team, Tavares needs to be our starter right now.
Tavares Jackson, the former 2nd round pick, had spent the previous 5 years with the Vikings. In that time, he had become the starter,
Jackson getting away, 1st down and more.
struggled, and served as the team's backup for the 3 years leading up to 2011. He was seen as a backup level quarterback at best. But looking at the quarterback market, after letting Hasselbeck go, they really didn't have any better options. The team also had signed Jackson's teammate Sidney Rice to a large contract to be their number 1 wide receiver. Rice was a talented, yet very injury-prone player. From the looks of it, the Seahawks had not improved their football team. In fact, in a few ways, they had downgraded. Unsurprisingly, the Seahawks were projected to be a mediocre team in 2011, with the expectation that they would win around 6 total games.
The Seattle Seahawks, they have won 3 in a row, getting back to 500 at 7-7. They are looking to get in the playoffs. They cannot lose.
And a first-round bye and at least 1 playoff game at home would be secured for the 49ers. 3rd and 3, pressure, Jackson.
Jackson loses the football.
After clawing their way to a 7-7 record and putting themselves in playoff contention, they lost a heartbreaker to the Niners, ending their playoff hopes. 2011 goes under the radar for its significance to building this team, perhaps because their pass game was atrocious, and because they failed to make the playoffs. But Seattle fans who watched this team saw the building blocks for what was to come on full display in 2011.
And that's a safety. It's intercepted off the hands.
What truly began to define the future of the Seahawks wasn't their high-priced free agents and all their top draft selections. Instead, it was late-round picks who were initially seen as backups, and undrafted free agents who were a long shot to make the roster in the first place. Let's start with the offense. 2010 2nd-round pick Golden Tate and high-priced free agent Sidney Rice had not been the productive receivers the team had hoped to that point. In defense of Rice, he did get injured, but that had been a reoccurring theme in his career. Instead of those guys starring at wideout, the team's number 1 receiving target was undrafted rookie Doug Baldwin, who led the team in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Baldwin had become the first undrafted rookie free agent to lead his team in receptions and yards since the AFL-NFL merger. But the bigger impact of under-the-radar players was on the defensive side. This unit had gone from 25th to 7th in points allowed and really improved its ability to force turnovers, ranking out 5th in the NFL in 2011. Just looking at interceptions, their top 4 players in this category produced 17 of the team's 22 interceptions. David Hawthorne, a former undrafted free agent, had 3. Rookie 5th rounder Richard Sherman had 4. The previous year's 5th rounder Cam Chancellor went from backup to Pro Bowler in 2011. He produced 4 as well. And leading the team with 6 interceptions was the undrafted rookie from the CFL, Brandon Browner, who also made the Pro Bowl. All in all, when you add in Earl Thomas, this defense had produced 3 Pro Bowlers in the secondary and was beginning to build a reputation as a hard-hitting, high-turnover producing unit. In the offseason following the 2011-2012 season, Cam Chancellor was a guest on 710 ESPN, Seattle's Bob and Graz show, and asked fans to suggest a nickname for the Seahawks secondary.
All right, first the big news. We got the nickname. It's the Legion of Boom.
That's right. Seahawks secondary officially named the Legion of Boom. Our listeners came up with the idea.
Right.
And then we presented it to Brandon Browner, and he said, thumbs up, and that's all we need.
It became an instant hit. Also, Marshawn Lynch's popularity continued to increase after being seen on the sideline eating Skittles.
My uncle told me, man, you disrespectful if you call them Skittles. Say they power pellets.
Not only did he garner more attention, but he also produced on the field, earning Pro Bowl honors in 2011. So despite this team finishing with 7 wins, there once again was optimism.
We look forward to this offseason with tremendous hopes of adding to a very, very young football team and building from where we are now.
But the team still had one glaring issue. A massive question mark at the sport's most important position.
Last year, Dan, we were wondering what they were going to do at quarterback. They got Tavares Jackson to compete with Charlie Whitehurst. Are they going to do that again, or are they going to go after a big-name guy?
Seattle had no clear answers of what they were going to do about it moving forward. And if this gaping hole on the roster wasn't addressed soon, all the success on hitting late-round picks and undrafted free agents would be for nothing. Early into the 2012 free agency period, the Seahawks had their answer.
Matt Flynn trades in being the backup for a starting job on the West Coast. The Seahawks are hoping that a one-time backup in Green Bay can again become the new franchise quarterback in the Pacific Northwest.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the opportunity. That's why I came here. That's why, just for the opportunity to start. That's everybody's dream, is to be a starter in the NFL. And I'm just going to go out there and play my game and try to move the sticks.
Matt Flynn, a former 7th-round quarterback who had been Aaron Rodgers' backup for 4 years, was virtually unknown. Until Week 17 of 2011. With the Packers resting starters in Week 17 in preparation for the playoffs, Flynn got his chance to start.
Flynn has appeared in 4 games, all of them blowouts this year. He's only made 1 NFL start.
And with his contract ending after the season, this was a 1-game tryout, essentially to see if he was worthy of staying in the league as a backup. Flynn not only played well, but it was truly one of the most shocking out-of-nowhere performances ever. Flynn threw for 480 yards and 6 touchdowns, both Packers records, in a victory versus the Lions.
Oh boy, looking for Jones!
It catapulted him from a borderline backup to potential starting material, and the Seahawks felt like he could be their next Matt Hasselbeck.
Matt understands the game in great depth, and he gives us a veteran presence, even though he hasn't had a lot of starting time, because he recognizes defense, understanding of what's going on the other side of the ball.
Hasselbeck had been a late-round pick as well. Now on to the next question, the 2012 draft. How was Seattle going to continue to build this roster? Well, staying true to Pete Carroll's philosophy. They continued to stack pieces on the defense, taking D-end Bruce Irvin with their first-round pick.
I'm going to come in and bust my butt every day, and just when it's time for me to go in, I'm going to make the most out of the situation.
Yeah, he'll make plays like a lot of great athletes do, but in the end, he'll give up more plays than he makes.
With their second-round pick, the Seahawks went with defense again, going with linebacker Bobby Wagner.
I don't know why they took Bobby Wagner as the next pick. I think they could have gotten him on day 3.
But more controversial than both of these 2 picks was who the team decided to pick with their 3rd-round selection.
Russell Wilson. His height will be his biggest inhibitor at the next level.
He was a little bit taller than me,
Although he has a quality arm, he'll never be a prototypical NFL quarterback.
Here's the one thing when you study him on tape. I do think his accuracy dips a little bit when he's in the pocket.
Could fit in as a part-time specialist coming off the bench.
You draft him to be a backup quarterback who could play 6 games a year, and if he plays 6 games a year, there's every likelihood you'll win 4 if you got a decent defense.
Russell Wilson was a solid college quarterback who had traits of a starting NFL quarterback. Great arm, solid mobility, and a playmaker. The problem was that he was under 6 feet tall.
He's 2 inches taller. What round does Wilson go in?
At least 2, probably higher considering some of the guys that went.
In the NFL, height is a crucial trait for a quarterback. Around just 5% of quarterbacks drafted are 6 feet and under. And when Wilson entered the league, there was just 2 guys in the NFL with similar heights. Michael Vick, the greatest athlete to ever play quarterback to that point, and Drew Brees, a man so accurate, decisive, and disciplined, he became an all-time outlier. Wilson was shorter than both of these guys. On the surface, it appeared Wilson was destined to become the team's backup behind Flynn.
Back across the middle and complete.
But after Russell Wilson torched opponents all preseason long,
It's caught in the end zone. Touchdown, Seahawks.
while Matt Flynn struggled, it was clear who the better quarterback was.
And Pete Carroll made it official, naming the rookie Russell Wilson as the starter going into the regular season.
For my name to be called for this football team, it's pretty special. You know, there's a lot more room for me to grow, and I'm excited about that. That's the great part about it. It's a challenge.
Even with some preseason success, people still didn't view Seattle as some profoundly different team with Wilson at quarterback. After all, he was a rookie, and many rookies have done well in the preseason only to get a reality check in the regular season. Different websites felt like Seattle was somewhere between a 6 to 8 win team, and in the grand scheme of the entire NFL, Seattle was overlooked due to falling in the middle of the pack. However, in Week 3, they found themselves center stage in one of the biggest in-game controversies in recent memory. Due to the 2012 referee lockout, the NFL season began with the now infamous replacement refs.
The replacement refs, let's face it, I think everyone agrees it's a disaster.
Holding, offense.
It was evident that these replacement refs were not only worse than the typical referees, but they were completely unprepared. And no moment shined light on this brighter than Week 3's contest between the Seahawks and the Packers.
Moore is 6'6", they're out to the right.
The game came down to one play. Down by 5, Seattle had one last desperate attempt. One final Hail Mary into the end zone.
Takes the lone receiver to the left.
And hope for a miracle. Wilson launched a moonball into the end zone.
The game's final play is a Wilson loft to the end zone, which is...
There was a fight for the ball, and simultaneously, one ref signaled touchdown while the other signaled a change of possession.
This play is under review. You can't go to replay to determine who caught the ball. How does MD Jennings not get credit for the interception?
They ultimately decided on a touchdown. This sparked immediate nationwide backlash.
The NFL has been knocked off its pedestal. When you have dominion over the sports world, as the NFL has, when you stink, it's rare that you smell yourself, and that's the problem.
Because when you look at the replay, the Green Bay defender clearly had possession of the ball. In a moment that couldn't have been refereed much worse, the NFL and the NFL Referee Association reached an agreement just 2 days later, and this would become known as the Hail Mary. It was a lucky win for the Seahawks, but for the rest of that season, luck had very little to do with their team's success. Week 6 of the 2012 season was a special moment in the rise of Seattle. At 3-2, there were some positives to point to, but still a lot of question marks. Wilson had been up and down to that point, and with the big and bad Patriots coming to town, this was a true test to see where they were at. And Belichick typically feasted on rookie quarterbacks. Well, the game was an absolute battle. Big plays and big hits defined the first half.
From the gun, Brady underneath. Oh, what a wallop!
But slowly, the Patriots pulled away and put themselves up 13 with 9 minutes remaining. The rookie Russell Wilson's answer? A 51-yard bomb to Golden Tate completed.
Up in the air, hauled in, Golden Tate.
And a couple plays later on 4th down, he threw a jump ball to Braylon Edwards for a touchdown. After 3 straight punts, including a crucial 3-and-out by Seattle's defense, Russ and the offense had a chance to make something happen, and magic ensued.
Play fake, Wilson. Buys time, stand strong, deep down the middle, got a man out there, Sidney Rice! Who's under? He's got it!
This magical deep ball would become a staple of Wilson's game. By Game 6 of his rookie year, he was providing something nobody expected. Also, the trash talk from the defense was beginning to make headlines. After defeating the Patriots, Richard Sherman, who intercepted Tom Brady in the game, came right up to him after and hit him with the, "You mad, bro?"
We're better than you. You're just a man. We're a team. One man cannot just beat a team. I am pretty jacked. And I wish I was going on NFL Network to tell all of them exactly how I feel.
Over the next few weeks, Seattle struggled and found themselves sitting at 6-5. they were going to need to finish strong in order to make the playoffs.
And that's just what happened.
The Seahawks are pouring it on. 50-17 over the Bills.
42-13 winners. They have punched their postseason ticket.
The Seahawks would end their regular season on a 5-game win streak and clinch a wildcard berth. Their defense had officially arrived, taking the honor as the best defense in football, with Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas both being named first-team All-Pro. The offense had improved substantially, ranking 9th in scoring. Not only was Marshawn Lynch a star on the offense, but Russell Wilson had been one of the biggest surprise stories in the league in 2012. There was only 2 players that finished ahead of him in the Rookie of the Year voting, which was incredibly surprising considering third-round picks don't typically play well. In their wildcard matchup, they went head-to-head with the team that had one of the 2 quarterbacks ahead of Wilson in the Rookie of the Year race, RG3. After falling behind 14-0, Seattle's defense did what they had done all year and shut out their opponent on their next 8 drives, while the offense began to produce, and the 2 units together helped the Seahawks prevail. Coming back down from 14 was impressive, but then the following week, they found themselves in an even deeper hole. Down 20 to the Falcons in the 4th quarter, the Seahawks started to pull off the unthinkable. Touchdown drive, forced an interception, got another touchdown. Then after forcing a punt with 5 minutes left, the Seahawks had the opportunity to take the lead, and they did. Somehow, someway, the Seahawks were 30 seconds away from reaching the NFC Championship game, but Atlanta drove down the field and set up the game-winning field goal. Crazy enough, Matt Bryan missed, but the Seahawks had called a timeout prior to the kick. His second attempt went in, sending the Seahawks home. But Seattle had clearly found something, and the rest of the NFL knew it. During the 2013 offseason, this was the first year under Pete Carroll where the Seahawks didn't have any glaring issues. They could use another playmaker, and if there was any weak link on their defense, it was defensive line. Both of those concerns were immediately addressed early in the offseason. Percy Harvin had been an explosive gadget guy in Minnesota, and they signed 2 starting-level defensive ends, Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill, who had 18.5 sacks combined in 2012. It was actually pretty shocking just how cheap they got these 2 defenders, considering their production levels on their previous teams. Just 1 year prior, this team was an afterthought. Now, they were projected as a top 5 roster, a Super Bowl contender, and certainly because of guys like Richard Sherman, this team had become polarizing.
But
okay. Do you think you're better than Darrelle Revis is right now?
In my 24 years of life, I'm better at life than you.
But one thing is clear. Any trash talk these dudes made, they consistently backed it up.
Sideline throw. Touchdown Seahawks. It throws and it's going to be picked off.
Third straight game with a pick 6. Richard Sherman.
The draw to Lynch. Wilson lets it fly for Rice. What a play.
In a season of historic proportion, the Seattle Seahawks were otherworldly in 2013. There was no denying the fact that by 2013, the rules had been completely changed to benefit offenses. The rise in scoring had been setting record highs year after year, and in 2013, it exploded to an all-time high. This was highlighted by the Broncos averaging nearly 38 a game. That's like Oklahoma in the Big 12 type numbers. Meanwhile, with this offensive scoring boom, the Seahawks defense was doing the unthinkable. Despite all the rule changes that had continued to make it harder and harder to stop opponents, this didn't stop them from routinely shutting down offenses. 7 of their 13 wins were blowouts, and they held their opponents to single digits in 6 games. The second best defense in 2013 had half that many games. Also, their defense against the pass looked like a throwback to the 70s.
as they forced 28 interceptions to just 16 touchdowns. Meanwhile, their offense had slightly improved from the previous season, mostly attacking opponents through their ground attack duo of Lynch and Wilson. And entering the playoffs, Seattle looked like the favorite to reach the Super Bowl out of the NFC. In the divisional round, they handled their business versus the Saints. Well, actually right until the very end. The Saints, down by 15, scored a touchdown, got the onside kick, and gave themselves a shot to tie, but ultimately fell short.
In the NFC title match, after falling behind 10-0 to the Niners, this game turned into a duel for the ages.
Let's go to work, come on. We're inside.
2nd down and 7. Wilson out to his right. Nowhere to throw it. It's Baldwin. Baldwin down inside the 15. First points of the day.
Go get him, Marshawn.
It's Lynch. It's a first down. Marshawn is in for the touchdown. Kaepernick now throws end zone. Caught. Kaepernick underneath. He's got Davis. Jansen, he can deliver a hit. Somebody steps into the neutral zone on the snap and a free play, throws it for the end zone, deep down to the back of the end zone. It is caught for a touchdown.
Seattle clawed their way back into the game and took their first lead in the fourth quarter. The Niners had 3 drives in the fourth quarter, all with the chance to take back the lead. These drives resulted in a fumble, an interception, and then with less than 30 seconds to go, this happened.
Looks, fires near side, going for the end zone. You're coming after it. Is it picked up? Is it picked up? Get it!
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get.
Is going to send Seattle to the Super Bowl.
Oh, try me! I'm the best!
The Seahawks are NFC champions! We're going to the Super Bowl! We're going to the Super Bowl!
Seattle had conquered the NFC, and the path to get there was no fluke. They achieved the best record in the conference, all while playing in the toughest division in the entire league. It's kind of funny seeing the difference in the NFC West standings compared to when Pete Carroll first got there. This incredible NFC championship was watched by over 55 million viewers, most of which saw Richard Sherman's post-game interview. In the typical scenario, a player in this position says all the right things, expressing gratitude for the moment, thanks his teammates, says the opponent deserves a ton of credit, things like that. Sherman's interview, however, was the polar opposite, and many people did not like it at all.
What interested me so much about what happened to you was the reaction afterward, the way it mushroomed, and the fact that race so quickly became involved.
Yeah, it was really mind-boggling. It's kind of sad that the way the world reacted.
This interview, as expected, immediately went viral.
Football player was widely criticized this week for his spontaneous comments following Sunday's NFL playoff game.
Did Richard Sherman go too far? Skip Bayless, it's for you. Yes, Richard Sherman did go too far.
We just didn't see dudes talking this kind of trash in national post-game interviews.
Who was talking about you?
Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best. Or I'm gonna shut it for you real quick. LOB.
The reaction from the public was mixed. Some angry people resorted to racist remarks over Twitter. Others simply thought it was disrespectful and unsportsmanlike. Then on the other end, some thought it was awesome, due to the brutal honesty in the moment, which is increasingly more rare with players media trained to say the right things from a young age. Overall, no matter how you felt about this interview, there's no denying how memorable it is. It instantly became an unforgettable memory
that has etched its place amongst sports' most iconic moments.
The Seahawk chant going around MetLife Stadium. It almost sounds like home.
Super Bowl 48 would become one of the most highly anticipated matchups in NFL history. A historically dominant defense versus the highest scoring offense in NFL history. To add a little spice to it, when Peyton Manning was making his free agency decision of where to play after leaving Indianapolis, he declined to visit with the Seahawks, perhaps due to the fact that Seattle didn't appear to be close to contending for a championship. Now, here they were, face to face in a battle of offensive firepower versus a defensive juggernaut.
Left tight trips to the left side, single wide receiver near side, and the ball goes into the end zone. It's a flag down. Moreno dives for the ball. The Seahawks are on the board. Ah, baby! Ah, we worked this thing right from the get-go. Snap. Manning makes it. He steps up in the pocket on the blitz. Ball sails. Ball's intercepted at the 40-yard line. And the offset eye. Wilson under center. The turn, the hand to Lynch. Looks for running room. Puts his head down. He keeps running. He's in. Ball at the 35. Moreno in the backfield. Now he scampers. The ball is hit as it comes out. And it's picked off. Far sideline. Malcolm Smith. 50, 45. He's going to go. The Legion of Boom. The Seahawks defense. They do it again. It has been decided maybe since the safety in the first quarter. Your Seahawks, Super Bowl 48 champions.
Seattle threw a victory parade today for the Super Bowl champion Seahawks. Police estimate the crowd at 700,000, which is more than the city's population.
After a beatdown of epic proportion, the Seahawks were crowned Super Bowl champions. To point out just how special their process had been to create this champion, the Super Bowl MVP was Malcolm Smith, a former 7th round pick and a lesser known figure of the Legion of Boom. But after 10 total tackles, a fumble recovery, and a pick six, this former 7th round pick took home the highest individual honor on the game's biggest stage. This was a huge moment for the entire city of Seattle. After watching the Seahawks reach just one Super Bowl in their first 34 years of existence, which they lost, the 12th man and NFL fans around the world watched Pete Carroll and John Schneider build a champion from the ashes in 4 years. The most exciting part for this fan base and organization was that they were going to retain just about everyone from this championship roster. With their core players so young, so dominant, and hungry for more, the Seahawks entered the 2014 season as the Super Bowl favorite, and rightfully so. But becoming a Super Bowl champion is extremely difficult, let alone trying to repeat. A back-to-back Super Bowl champion had not happened in about a decade when New England pulled it off to become a dynasty. Seattle had all the pieces in place to try and pull off this rare feat. And after the most dominant regular season run of the Legion of Boom era, in 2014, they achieved the NFC's top seed once again. Entering the playoffs on a 6-game win streak, it appeared that the only thing stopping the Seattle Seahawks from going back-to-back was themselves.
Now you have to stop Marshawn Lynch.
Oh my word, and the 12s are just as stunned as we are.